And I'm so excited. I can't wait to see this presentation myself. So thank you, Matt.
Thank you. All right, good morning, everybody. Let's try that again. That was weak. Good morning, everybody. There we go. All right. Before we start, I got to stay here last night. This is not a commercial. I'm just going to tell you, it is nice. It is very nice. The food is incredible, and I'm getting an echo. Anybody know where that's coming from? Let me turn this microphone off. Well, I'll sum up this place for you. The food is nice, and the pickleball is aggressive. The pickleballers this morning were very, very good, and they woke me up. Bing, 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 bing. So it's good. Beautiful. Now, I'm doing this. This is great. Anyway, food is incredible. I'll keep pushing that. All right, how many of us have too much stuff? All right. You're going to learn two things today. One, you're going to learn why do you have too much stuff? Why are we emotionally holding on to it? And then two, we're going to give you 5 tips from my book on how to actually get started today. You will actually go home tonight and get started if you choose to. All right. If I look familiar, I'm on a bunch of weird TV shows that you don't want to admit to anybody that you watch. I have been cleaning houses for 25 years. I've written this book. We've heard a lot about it, Keep the Memories, Lose the Stuff. Everything I have ever done in my career is in that book. The Secret Lives of Hoarders. Edgar, that book is for you. It's not for anybody else. All right. Keep the Memories, Lose the Stuff. I just wrote that book. It's literally everything I've done in my last 25 years. I actually wrote that book 4 years ago. I fell in love with my now wife while I was writing that book. And I was packing up my life of 45 years. And I had been giving tips for 20 years at that point. And it's very easy to give tips about how to go clean out your house. But when I got in my attic, it got a little harder. When I was going through my past divorce, my kids' stuff, the mediocre art that they bring home from school that's not really any good, but you feel guilty for throwing it away. I went through all of my dad's stuff, my grandparents' stuff, my high school, went through all that stuff, and I froze. And I called my now wife, and I said, I don't think I can move. This is too much. And by the way, the book was coming out 3 months later. I had written the book. And I called my publisher and I said, guys, this book sucks. I can't even move. Like, the guy that wrote it is stuck. And the reason I was stuck is I hadn't addressed the emotional part. I was giving you a bunch of tips. How do you get rid of this? I was ignoring the fact of why we keep it. So I ended up rewriting the entire book. I sat in my attic that week and I wrote down every emotion that I was going through. And I rewrote the book focusing on emotions, not tips. And so I'm very proud of the book, and we'll really hustle through that book today so you'll have ways to move forward. All right, bottom line, there's a TV show called Hoarders. I was the host of Hoarders for 15 years. I cleaned out the messiest houses in the country. You don't need to go watch the show. I'll sum it up for you. One day, I cleaned out 300 cats out of a lady's house. Yes. And over beers, that's a wonderful story, but it's not a morning story. I'll say that. Why that matters to you. If I can clean out 300 cats out of a house, I can surely help you clean out your house. Show of hands, does anybody have 301 cats? Anybody? I think the limit here is 1, right? Okay, 1. All right. My stepdaughter, so we have 7 kids. We have 6 boys, 10 to 15, and an 18-year-old daughter. And she found this picture on TikTok, which is a social media thing. And she goes, there's this skinny, good-looking dude on TikTok that looks kind of like you doing what you said you always done. And she showed me that picture. I go, yeah, that's me. And I go, you were 1 when I took that picture. And she goes, you used to be good-looking. And I go, exactly. I used to be. I go, that's why I want you to go to college. I go, at some point, it goes away. All right, how did I get into this business? Really simple. When I was 24, my dad, my stepdad, both my grandfathers all passed away in 1 year. It was 14 months. It was just tragic. It wasn't like an awesome bar fight or anything. They just happened to die about 4 months apart. And so it was kind of like when a set of waves comes in, you think you're done. We're all old enough in this room to experience multiple griefs in a row, and it just kept hitting you and hitting you. And I was the one that was left to clean the houses. For your generation, it's the oldest adult daughter. Everybody's shaking their head up and down. All right? Raise your hand if you're the oldest adult daughter. You have to do everything for some reason. All right? But we didn't have any women in my family. It was all men. And so I was the only one not working, so I got to do it. Now, these men raised me. They made me who I am. All right? This is my dad and I. This is in my dad's chair. Back in the day, dads had a chair. Anybody? Dad have a chair? You weren't allowed to sit in it. That was Dad's chair. Right? This was my dad's chair. It's a 1977 Eames. Anybody remember Eames? It's not a good one. It was a knockoff. Okay? But I didn't know, and I didn't care. It was my dad's chair, and I would sit in that chair every night, hang out with my dad. I loved it. It was where I got to snuggle up with my dad just like that. I got to really know him. And then when later in life I would wait for him to come home from work, and I would sit in that chair and wait for his car to come around the cul-de-sac. He had a 1981 BMW 320i. For anyone that remembers old BMWs, it had that circle headlight. Had 4 of them. And so I would just sit there and wait in that chair. And I loved that chair. When my dad got divorced, I'd wait in that chair even more from my dad to come get us. And I loved that chair. So then when my dad got sick, I was his at-home caregiver. And I sat in that chair right next to my dad while he died at home. So when my dad died, what did I want? I wanted the chair. What did I really want? I wanted my dad. But that wasn't an option. So the next best thing was this ring and that chair. All right? So we'll put a pin in this chair. It's going to come back to us. All right. What do I really do? I help people clean out their houses. All right? Most of my clients are people like you that have lived a great life, a wonderful life, and it's time to start thinking about where we're going to go next. Right? Show of hands, how many of you have been in your house at least 5 years? All right, look around. How about 10 years? How about 15 years? Guys, look around. 20 years. No one's dropping their hands. 25 years. 30 years. 35 years. Look at the amount of hands that's still up. Anybody over 50 years? All right, look, we still got hands up. Average number, 35 to 40 years you've been in your house. All right, 35 to 40 years. Guys, I'm only 49. All right, 35 years you've been in your house. Is it safe to say it's going to take us longer than a 3-day holiday weekend to clean it out? Right? Think of all the, and by the way, you're not accounting for the fact that you have your parents' stuff in your house as well, because they just died in the last 10 to 15 years. All right? Am I saying stuff that sounds familiar? One of the benefits about you guys coming today is you're going to find out one main thing. You're not alone. You're all going to laugh at the same jokes. You're all going to be like, yeah, I am the oldest adult daughter. That was half the room, by the way. I mean, you're going to learn that you're not alone. All right. So what do we really do? We help you clean out your house. But for me, it's really an opportunity to hear a lot of stories. I hear a ton of stories. We just talked about my dad's chair. Are we talking about the chair? Or are we really talking about my dad? We're really talking about how much I love my dad. That's what that chair is really about. So when I go to help people clean out their houses, I get to hear all of those stories. I hear tons and tons of stories. And, you know, the stories are amazing because they literally tell who we are, who we were, that we existed, that we mattered, that our parents existed, that they mattered. It celebrates everything that everyone who made us who we are. And there's incredible stories, but yet at the same time, that stuff holds us back from living a much better life. Can we agree to that? All right. So today we're going to learn how to celebrate both. All right. What do we find? I find cash a lot. Usually, it's decreased in the last 10 years. I will tell you, when I started 25 years ago, the first question I would ask was, what did you do during the war? Because the woman that had hired me was a Rosie the Riveter and would work in the war. Right? Now I get to ask, did you go to Woodstock? Entirely different questions, both fascinating answers. I will tell you that. 25 years ago, we'd find cash in every single house. Every house. Yeah. Your parents did not trust banks, and rightfully so. They remember the Depression. They remember not having things. And that is why a lot of us held on to those things. We find cash all the time. We also find very nominal things like cans of soup. But what's on that can of soup? Do you see anything at the bottom? Well, we could talk about expiration dates for the full hour. Some people think they're real. Some people think they're not. This was a Campbell soup can at the bottom of the pantry. In fact, we had been hired by Penguin Random House Publishing to clean this lady's house. She was an old editor from the 70s in New York City, and we knew the original artwork from the original Babar manuscript was in her house. And so they hired us to get that for a museum. But at the bottom of a pantry on like the 4th day of this clean out, on a 4th level walk up in Manhattan, I found that can of soup. And it had a Sharpie marker on it. And I said, "Ma'am, please tell me that that's signed by who I think it's signed by." And she goes, "Oh yeah, my buddy Andy." All right, he had gotten a can of soup signed by her buddy, Andy Warhol. And that created the conversation of, well, how in the world do you know Andy Warhol? Oh, we used to hang out at Studio 54. I used to date one of his friends. Turns out his friend was Bob Marley. Turns out a lot of people dated Bob Marley in the 70s. But what an amazing story. From what? A can of soup. What matters, the can of soup or the story? The story. I'd pay $100 to hear that story. I'd write a movie about that story if I could. Right? And then we find things that used to be significantly financially valuable. Now they're emotionally valuable. What's this room we're looking at right here? The dining room. There's a much lower tone when we say the dining room. How many of us are here because of the dining room? Dining room's tough. Let's talk about the dining room. By the way, this is my grandmother's dining room. This is the dining room I grew up in. This is the dining room I had lunch in every single Sunday. Every birthday for everyone in my family. Every holiday. I don't know why anyone else even had a dining room. Because we always went to my grandmother's house. It just was what it was. It never even came up. This was the room that I learned about family. This is the room I learned about love. It was the foundation of the man I became. Right? And believe it or not, I was an economist for the Federal Reserve many, many years ago. Many years ago. 6 months. I wasn't a very good one, I can tell you. But I love data. I love math. And so we do have to explore, why did your parents care so much about this room? Well, think about it. Our grandparents came home from the war. For me, grandparents. For you guys, parents. They came home from the war. They got a house on a GI Bill. Created what we now know as the suburbs. They went to Sears. Sears sold them every single thing they can imagine via the catalog or the store. And they filled that house. And then they created what we now know as our lives. And you have to remember, they survived the Depression. They survived the war. So the stuff in their house, specifically this room, was the nicest stuff. And it was proof that they made it. It was proof that the hard work was worth it. And then we created our families in that house. This is why we love this room so much. And when I talk about this room, I say, great, who's going to want all this stuff? Nobody wants this room. The title of my book originally was Nobody Wants Your Stuff. But AARP would not allow me to title it that. AARP was my partner on that book, and they're like, that's rude, you can't do it. I go, I think it's actually dead on. Trust me, as everybody says. And what I've learned is, it's not that your kids and your grandkids don't want your stuff. They don't want that stuff. They love you. They have the foundation of a family, but it was in a different room. It was going to the beach. It was going to practice. It was going to a different vacation home. It was going somewhere else. They do have that deep love of their family being formed. It's just not in the one place you and I formed it. Does that make sense? So one important thing that you guys have to leave with today is you have to know that your grandkids and kids do want your stuff, just not that stuff. Right? When my grandmother moved into a senior living community, she was ready to hold a lottery. She thought it was going to be a line around the door of everybody, that all the kids and grandkids were going to fight over this stuff. Right? I said, Nanny, I don't really want it. I want your bike. She goes, my bike? I go, yeah. I go, your Raleigh. She had this awesome little Raleigh bike, and my grandma was really young. I'm from Virginia, so the math works out on this, but it might not on the West Coast. My grandma was in her low 40s when I was born. She was like 41, 42. I'm 49, by the way, and I got a 10-year-old. Yeah. My grandma was around the age I am now when I was growing up. And so when my grandma would come to take care of us, we'd go bike riding, we'd go skiing, we'd go hiking. We had a really fun, active life. And at the back of my neighborhood, there was this hill that we called Dead Man's Hill. Yes, very scary. Dead Man's Hill. And we all believed that some kid died on this hill on a sled sometime back in the 50s. Never mind, this was a farm until like the mid-70s, right? But the story, the folklore was this kid died. And we called it Dead Man's Hill. And so that day, my brother and I came up with a really good idea that we were going to trick my grandmother to ride her bike down Dead Man's Hill. We thought it would be hilarious. I was 10, he was 12. So we planned it. It worked perfectly. We were like, Nanny, and my grandmother was very competitive. And so she would always fall off. I said, Nanny, I bet you I can beat you. And I said, I don't think you can do it, Nanny. I don't think you can beat us. And then that was all I had to say. So she got into go mode. She's racing. She stood up. I stood up. We're racing as fast as we can down the street. My brother and I had pre-planned all this. We get right to the top of the hill, and my brother and I slam on our brakes. And my grandmother goes over the hill. Woo! She starts screaming all the way down the hill. And she went out of view around the corner, and we went back home. And it was about an hour before she got back to the house, and she was furious. Why on earth would you do that to me? And we were laughing. We were like, we thought it'd be hilarious, Nanny, and it totally worked. Aren't you proud of us? Our joke worked. And this is back in the day when you could still spank people. And she did. She spanked us, but she had rheumatoid arthritis, so it really just tickled. It didn't hurt. And the more she would spank us, the harder we would laugh. And we would laugh, and she would spank us, and we would laugh, and she would spank us. And finally, she just gave up. She goes, you guys are jerks. When it was time to get my grandma's stuff, I didn't need this. I love that story. I tell that story all the time. My grandma actually showed up. She just died this year at 96. She showed up at 95. She showed up to one of my speeches, and she insisted that she tell her version of that story. And she rolled up in her wheelchair, and I'm up on the stage, and she made me give her the mic. And what do you do when your grandmother comes to your job, you know? But at the end of the day, I wanted that bike. And now that she's gone, one of my favorite things is the emblem from her bike. Right? I don't need the dining room because my family started on that bike on that hill. Right? Do your kids care about your stuff? Yeah, just not that stuff. Right. All right, we'll skip through all this. You guys read that cartoon. I'll tell you, that's basically why we're here. All right. Depending upon who you are, by the way, if you're in the back, it's probably easier to look up on the screens up top here on the sides. If you're in you're either one of these two people. The guy on the left, one day this will all be yours. Or you're the guy on the right, oh, one day this is all going to be mine. And some of you are both because you just got some of your adult parents' stuff. And yet here we are ready to downsize ourselves, and you have your parents' stuff coming in, and you have your adult children's stuff, who, by the way, are 45 and are on their third house. Yet all of their stuff is still in your house. That's crazy. We'll talk about that more later. I can't tell you how many of my clients go, well, I would love to move, but I got all my kids' stuff. How old are your kids? Oh, I mean, my grandkids are in there, getting ready to go to college. I mean, why are we holding on to your kids' stuff? All right, what have I learned in 20 years? We justify a lot of stuff. We were talking about this earlier, somebody. Why do we justify what we keep? All right, we think we're going to need those items. We tell ourselves we're definitely going to need them. Right? I might need them tomorrow. That bread maker that you bought during the pandemic, you were going to start making bread? Or that pressure cooker that everybody got that year. Remember that pressure cooker everybody got? I'm going to start making soups. We buy those things. Well, I'm going to need it someday. Right? We really think we're going to need it later. This is all wrong, by the way. You're not going to need it later until you get rid of it. And then when you get rid of it the next day, you're going to wish you had it. All right. They were expensive. This one's real. Subjectively, they were expensive to us. And that's why we hold on to a lot of these things. And that's real. I'll go with that justification. We think they're going to be worth a lot of money. Do we even need to address that? They're not. And we'll talk about how much you should account for later. All right? And we think our grandkids are going to want it someday. Our grandkids are kids. Not. All of these except for number 3 are wrong. You're justifying this stuff because you don't want to actually deal with it. Because there's so many emotions behind it. Right? Bottom line, what I've learned in 25 years, we hold on to our stuff because of the people and the memories attached to those items. Period. You don't hold on to my dad's chair because it's good leather. I hold on to my dad's chair because it's my dad's chair. And my dad's gone. And that's why I hold on to it. Right? We don't want to lose the people and the memories attached to that stuff. I interviewed 100 of my clients a couple years ago. Number one reason they don't want to let go of stuff, because they don't want to be forgotten when they're gone. I get it. I get it. Number 2 reason, they don't want their parents to be forgotten now that they're gone. Does that make sense to you guys? We don't want to be forgotten. My dad has been dead longer than he was alive in my life. My dad's been gone for 25 years. I was 24 when he died. Yet I talk about my dad every single day. He's not going anywhere. His stories live on. I was in Colorado 2 years ago, and I was telling a story on a big stage. And a lady comes up and she goes, "Are you Ed Paxton's son?" And I said, "I am." "Why?" And she goes, "Well, you prance across the stage like your dad did." And I said, "I'll take that, thank you." I said, "So you knew him?" She goes, "Yeah, your dad gave me my very first job." She goes, "I remember that chair. It was in his office." And I lived in Virginia. This story was happening in Colorado. If you tell the stories, people stay with us. All right, the only way, this is the secret. Don't tell anybody. This is the secret. The only way to properly let go of stuff is to tell the stories. We don't take time to tell the stories. Yet the stories are the one thing that's actually valuable in those items. The rest of it's just math and logistics. The stories is what matter. So I want you to start telling the stories. All right? 5 steps. You can't tell, I'm going to tell a lot of stories today. We got 5 steps to starting to clean out your house. All right? Number 1 is know your finish line. Where are you going? Most people call me and they say, "Hey, I'm ready to downsize. Come over. Let's pick a day. Let's start going through everything in my house." I go, "Great. Where are you going?" "Oh, I don't know yet." Well, how can I tell you what to take if we don't know where we're going? How can we pack for vacation? Are we going to the beach? Are we going to the mountains? I don't know. If we don't know where we're going, we can't make that decision. And these are the two most important women in my life. This is my grandma, who just passed away, Ann, and that's my great aunt, BB. Again, we're from the South. Her name was Alma. I don't know how they got BB out of Alma, but they called her BB my entire life. All right. My grandmother, at 70, decided to move into her community. She wanted to go in early. Someone told her that she had to walk in to get the best room. And my grandma took everything as a challenge. And so for her, she was going to walk in, and she made a whole, Beyonce thing about it. She let the doors open, and she walked in. And she's like, "I'm here." And she was there for 26 years. Same community. She did all 3. She came in independent, eventually got to assisted, and eventually had full care. Because she wanted to get every penny out of that place. She knew the numbers. She's like, "If I live 24 years, they lose money." And she was committed to making it, and she did. She'd always say, "I'm on borrowed time. I'm ahead now." She did it. She did it right. My great aunt did not. My great aunt refused to leave her house. She kept pushing it. She kept saying no. She kept saying no. And then when it came time for her to go to a new community, she didn't have any options. Life happened, and the medical situation made her go to one place. Right? The reason I'm saying this is you will know if it's time or not. Make that decision, because I can't help you go through the stuff if you don't know where you're going. All right. Now, here's probably the hardest thing about downsizing. It's the easiest thing to quit. If you didn't quit, you wouldn't be here today. This room is full, and it had a very big wait list, right? Because all of us are struggling with stuff, right? Because it's easy to quit, kind of like dieting. Dieting is very easy to quit. The second tip we put in there is know your why, and this is important. If you know your why, you won't quit. For me in my life, I've already told you, all the men that raised me died. So none of my 6 children, none of my 6 boys have a grandpa. And they never had a grandpa. And I was raised by 2 amazing grandpas, and there's a huge part of my life. So for me, my biggest goal is I want to be a grandpa. My why for everything is grandpa. And I write that word grandpa, and I put it on the wall all around my house. Because one day, my son heard me. He said, Dad, I heard you want to be a grandpa. I said, yeah. He goes, that's awesome. This is my 14-year-old. He goes, I'm just going to say it out loud, Dad. If you want to be a grandpa, why do you eat all that food that you know is so bad for you? He's got a point. So the next day, I wrote the word grandpa, and I actually put it in the refrigerator. It's in the freezer behind the ice cream. So when I move the ice cream, I see the word grandpa. It's on my mirror when I brush my teeth, and it's on my office. When I try to do one more thing, I see the word grandpa, because what do I really need to do? I need to get home and be with my kids. Right? I force myself to see that word grandpa. What's your why when you decide to move? Is it to be closer to grandkids? Is it to have better food? Is it to live in a much prettier place? Be closer to health care? More socialization? I don't care what your why is, but I need you to know what your why is. Because your why is what's going to keep you from quitting when you're downsizing. I thought you guys were coming here to talk about stuff. We're really not talking about stuff, are we? This is a mindset switch. Right? I'm trying to get you guys focused on where you're going and what do you have to do to get there. And the first thing you got to do is you got to know where you're going, and then you got to clear out your house. And the best way to do that is to stop quitting. And the only way to not quit is to know your why. So can you go home tonight and write down your why? Discuss it with your partner? Put it on a piece of paper. The other day I found it, and my kids now think this is a joke, and so they'll write the word grandpa on a Post-it note, and they like to hide it around the house. They'll put it in my shoes, I'll get to my job, or they'll put it in a pillowcase. The other day, I was reaching in a box for some Cheez-Its, and I was like, oh, my God. I found a Post-it note in the Cheez-Its, and it said, Grandpa. Right? Knowing your why and being honest with yourself will keep you from quitting. All right. Starting small is the other issue. People start too big. They say, let's do this. I'm energized. I'm ready to go. I'm going to downsize now. And then they say, for the next 2 weeks, that's all we're going to do. 10 hours a day, we're going to downsize. What's going to happen on the very first day? You're going to get overwhelmed, you're going to wear out, and you're going to quit. Right? You cannot do that. You must start small. And I'm talking really small. 10 minutes. Can you do 10 minutes? First 2 weeks, I want you to do 10 minutes a night, 4 nights a week. That's it. 10 minutes a night, 4 nights a week. Well, where do I start? Somewhere non-emotional. So if you're a new widow or a new widower, don't start with your partner's clothes. That's too emotional. I like to start somewhere very, very simple. I'll either go through a stack of pictures. Honestly, my favorite is the junk drawer. It's the top left drawer in your kitchen. It's got rubber bands, pins, right here. It's right here on the left. All right? Yep. It's got pins. It's got rubber bands. It's got old notes from addresses from someone that died 6 years ago. And it's got a bunch of those Bed Bath & Beyond coupons that say 20% off. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about? Yeah. By the way, Bed Bath & Beyond, and not only are they expired, they went out of business. You're allowed to get rid of those coupons. All right? The other version of that is in the garage. It's the red Folgers coffee cans. They were your dad's, and they're filled with pennies or nails, or twine, yarn, a lot of string. Guys, I've been in all these houses for 25 years. I know what's in your house. Right? Those cans are right next to the National Geographic full set, wrapped in twine. No value in that National Geographic set, by the way. No financial value. All right, I want you to start really, really small. Here's the challenge. This step is about, again, not quitting, and it's not actually about what you get done. It's about what you don't get done. it's not about what you do get done. It's about that you can prove to yourself that you can get it done. One of the biggest challenges here, if you're here with a partner, don't hit your partner after I say this. All right? If you're still together, one of you will be very proud of the 10 minutes that you accomplished, and the other one will be focused on what you did not accomplish the rest of the day. That is the wife, by the way, just so we're clear. The wife is the one that is not focused on, or is upset that we didn't do more. Right? No one laughs at that one because it's true. All right? Here's the deal. If you are still, it's easier to declutter if you're single. I'll be really honest. Significantly easier. Because you just do what you want to do. Right? If you're still together with your partner, now you both know how to compromise. And so it's harder to clean. What I'm telling you is both of you must buy into focusing on, hey, we accomplished something. And don't focus on what we haven't. Don't look at how much is still left to do. If you do that, you'll quit. The goal here is to keep going. Understood? All right, don't even get mad at me on that one. All right, step number 3 is you got to tell your legacy. All right, legacy is a big part of what I do. I was on a TV show on PBS called Legacy List. Anybody ever see it? Nope, no one's ever seen anything on PBS, unfortunately. Thank you for watching. It's a great show. I did 5 seasons of that. I was actually nominated for 2 Emmys. When I got nominated for the Emmys, I was really excited. And then I saw the list of who else was nominated. It was Joanna Gaines, twice, Marie Kondo, Oprah, and me. And I thought, the odds on that list are not very good for me. And of course, I got last. Yeah, I did not win. But I was happy to be on. I was happy to be nominated. I found out what that statement actually means. All right. What is a legacy list? Well, a legacy list is a list of the top 5 items in your home that matter the most. I had a client one time, she called us, and my grandfather's trunk is upstairs. And she was 85, so I was doing the math, and it was like, that's probably a World War I trunk, not a World War II trunk. And we get up there, and sure enough, it was one of the World War I trunks, and we opened it, and there's a 44-star flag in that trunk. 44 stars. I'm looking around. My buddies and I are trying to figure out very quickly, okay, Hawaii and Alaska, we know who that's easy to knock off the list. But what are the other 4? It got hard really quick. All right? We didn't know. And we're starting to try to figure it out. And I said, ma'am, how did you get this? She goes, I don't know. That's why you're here. Like, I don't know. I don't know the answer. So we called some friends. We did some research. And we found out her grandfather was a train conductor the day Utah became a state, 1889. He drove all the politicians to Salt Lake City. They had the event. The event was over. He's like, that's a useful piece of cloth. I'll put that in my, just like you'd find a piece of yarn that you keep. He kept it, put it in a trunk. We found it 115 years later. Pretty crazy. Right? It's now at the Smithsonian, by the way. All right. What a legacy list really is when I started this business, we called it a fire list. Right? If your house caught on fire, what are the 5 items you'd want to take with you? Just yell it out right now. Let's yell them out to me. What would you take with you? If your house caught on fire right now, what would you want to pull out? Photos. Important papers. Photos. What did you guys say? Passport. Jewelry. A dog, pet. What about your partner? Anybody interested in saving your partner? Anyone? No one ever says partner. Ever. No one ever says partner. All right. The point is, there's very few things you'd want to keep, right? And that's really what a legacy list is, the most important things that tell you who you are. And here's why a legacy list is important. When you go home tonight, you're going to write down those 5 items, and you're going to talk to your partner or yourself, and you're going to figure out, these are the 5 most important things in my house. And then we start to share those stories. What happens is you prioritize the people and the items that mattered most to you. And what you find is the more times you tell the stories about those people and those items, the less important all that extra stuff in the closet and the attic become, because you've already shared the stories and the values of who you really are. You'll start to see the release come. I don't need to see all my dad's suits from the last 55 years, because I already know who my dad is and I've celebrated him very much. Does this make sense? I've seen it over and over and over. All right. This is an item on my legacy list. This is a picture of my grandparents, my dad's parents. Right? Very important picture. They were farmers in Oklahoma, farmers and pastors. That's what they did. Hard working people. Right? And they would take 2 weeks off a year to go fishing in Colorado. Right on, if you're familiar with Colorado, it's 2 hours north of Fort Collins, all the way up Donner Pass. The house is at 9,900 feet, very high up, and like 4 hours from Denver. Laramie, Wyoming is closer than anything in Colorado. That's how far up you are in the mountains. And my grandma would tell this story. They went fishing, and he went into that store to buy worms, to buy night crawlers. And she goes, he was in there 10 minutes than normal, so I knew something was up. And he came out, he got in the car, and he said, we're moving here. I bought the store. And she said, okay. And they got out of the car, and they took that picture. And from that day on, for the rest of my life, all of the Paxtons have been an entrepreneur. Because they started their store that day. We've all been entrepreneurs ever since. So believe it or not, that picture is probably one of the most important items for me. That's a legacy list item. Do I need the physical copy of that item? Do I? No, it's digitized. I'm good. You guys all have a copy. They're going to email you a copy, by the way, if you want a copy of this presentation. The residents, I probably should have told you that at the beginning, shouldn't I have? Yeah, you've been writing really fast. I'm sorry. So yeah, anybody that wants one, the residency counselors will help you get a copy of this if you want it. Right? For me, I have a digital copy. If this got lost, I'd be okay. Because by the way, all of you know the story now. I'm good. Right? Does it make sense? All right. This is probably one of my favorite legacy list items. This is the recipe book my mom made. Right? My mom, it's in my mom's handwriting. Anybody receive something, find something from a loved one that's passed, but it's in the handwriting? Man, you feel at home. You feel like you're back where you're supposed to be. It's an amazing feeling. This is my mom's handwriting. This is my grandparents' apricot pie recipe. And I've talked a lot about my grandparents. This guy right here, Russell Paxton, that was my grandpa. He started that country store. He was a farmer. He was a preacher. He ended up becoming a postmaster because nobody could get mail where they were. And then his side hustle, in his free time, he would break broncos. He would ride wild horses. And we would sit on the corral and watch our grandfather all summer. And every summer he would always break 5 horses. That was his thing. And I didn't understand why. As a kid, it's a magical thing to see your grandfather ride a wild horse and make it tame. It was a pretty magical thing, and as an adult now, it was an amazing thing. We just sit there all day and watch him. And he would do 5 a summer, and when he died, I had to clean out his house, and I found his registry, and I found out why. He had 5 grandsons, and every Christmas, he'd send us each $20. Guess what he charged to break a bronco? $20. Right? So fast forward, amazing man, fast forward, they all die. My mom says, I got to go get everybody's recipes. So she went for a year, traveled around the country, and got everybody's recipes in the family. Everybody from the churches that we went to, that we grew up in. There is 6 recipes for deviled eggs in this book. Right? By the way, that joke kills it in the South. Kills it. You can say 16 and they will still think it's funny. All right. This is the apricot pies. Why does this book matter? Sure, it's wonderful. What a great gesture. I got one, my brother got one. Before we were even married to anybody. What's amazing is, fast forward, I didn't know this would happen, 20 years later, I'm now moved to Atlanta, Georgia, and I have 4 Korean-born stepchildren. And Thanksgiving morning, we're making my grandma's apricot pies, telling my grandkids about the cowboys that raised me. And they're asking, what about this story? What about this? What did you ride in? What did you do? This legacy list item, the recipe, was absolutely the gateway to me telling them everything about growing up with my grandparents as cowboys. Is that an important item? It's a piece of paper. Is the paper important? No. It's the stories and the words behind it. Right? You've got to share the stories for them to matter. You've got to document them. We've talked about that. but then you got to tell the stories. Telling is step number 4. We're already on step number 4. We're only doing 5 steps, guys. Right? Step number 4 is sharing the stories. This is the hard part. We all have them. You say, oh, I'm getting old. I don't remember everything. That's not the thing. We are embarrassed to share our stories. We think people don't want to share our stories. Right? This is probably my favorite story ever. I love this woman. All right, I clean out houses for a living. I want to say in advance, if this offends anybody, I apologize. It's not a bad word. It's just a tool that we use in cleaning out houses. It gets emotional sometimes. Look, we already said average number was 35 to 40 years here. Right? So you're going to have all your life stories and your parents' stories in your house. So when we're going through your house, sometimes it gets emotional. People need to pause for a minute. They have to cry. They think about someone they love. Right? You guys are laughing and crying today, by the way, in this presentation. I'm seeing both. That means we're doing a good job because you're thinking about the things. Right? We have this tool we call Hot Grandma. That's the word, Hot Grandma. When we find a picture of Grandma, she's often wearing a dress that's too short. She's 18 years old. She's stunning. She might be smoking a cigarette, doing something she's not supposed to do. We often find pictures of Grandma when she was a normal 16 to 18-year-old kid. Right? And the family can't believe it. And we use that tool to our advantage. Whenever mom's having a hard time, we go, hey, go get that picture, man. Bring it out. They bring it out. We say, wow, who's this? She's so beautiful. Oh, that's me. Oh, you don't say. And it's this really silly dance. And we both know what we're doing, but it makes everybody feel better. So we were in a house. We had an adult granddaughter in her 20s. We had the adult mom in her late 40s. And then grandma was close to 80. And me and my buddy are cleaning the house. It was Kaylin, for a buddy of mine that's here that knows Kaylin. Kaylin and I are cleaning the house, and Grandma was having a really hard go, and I said, hey, go get the Hot Grandma picture. So he goes and gets the Hot Grandma picture. He brings it out. Who's this? And she's like, oh, that's me. And I said, oh, you don't say. And we're getting ready to go down that whole little song and dance, and then the adult daughter screams very loudly, who's that? That's not Grandpa. Not Grandpa is the key to this story. Okay? She goes, oh, that's Armando. He was my lover. And then she just flips to the next picture. And we're like, let's go back to Armando. There's more to that story. So we flip it back. She goes, oh, well, she's like, actually, it was the summer before I met your grandfather. She goes, he was still in the war. She goes, I was a professor at MIT. She goes, I was teaching art history, and Armando was the Spanish professor. We had a torrid love affair, and then he moved back to Spain, and the next summer, I met your grandfather. And my team, we're just like, oh my God, this is amazing. And the granddaughter says, you were a professor at MIT? She goes, yeah, I was the first female adjunct professor at MIT. She goes, during the war, they let us come teach. She goes, I was the first female professor there. If we didn't take the time to hear about Armando, she never would have learned that her grandma is a total badass. You gotta tell the story. Excuse my language, by the way, if that's offensive, but there's no better way to say it. Right? Grandma was amazing. And apparently Armando was too. I mean, she was pretty. She did say she found him on Facebook. He was still alive, and she said he's still handsome. And she goes, that's what Facebook is for, finding your ex-boyfriends. And the daughter was like, that's true, actually. Yeah. So, by the way, we found that dress later in the attic a couple days later. Guess who wanted to keep the dress? The granddaughter. Because she knew the story. If you don't tell the story, it didn't happen. All right? The more you tell the stories, the more people are actually going to want your stuff. Remember how we said nobody wants your stuff? They don't know the truth. They don't know the real reason. They don't know the real stories. All right? This is now Miss Lennis many years later. She's 90 in that picture, by the way. I mean, this woman is something else, man. Oh, I love her. Absolutely love her. All right, how do you tell stories? You say, Matt, you're a really good storyteller. This is what you do for a living. Yeah, I am. Right? You don't have to be perfect. Right? How do you tell the story? First, you got to find someone to tell it to. I cannot stress this enough. The pandemic made this very easy. It's pretty sad sitting by yourself in the room telling the story to yourself. Hey, did you hear the one about? Yeah, that was awesome. Right? You're going to have to get out of your comfort zone here. Right? I want you to tell friends. I want you to tell family. My kids have heard every story 100 times. They're good. But their friends haven't, so I really enjoy telling their friends. I enjoy telling anyone that's willing to listen. All right? Believe it or not, a lot of communities I work with, activities directors in the back, this is one we've been doing a lot now. We'll actually bring residents in, and we let them do an adult show and tell. They bring one item from their house, from their apartment, and it's their legacy list item. And they have 3 minutes to tell their story. And people show up. I mean, you'll have 50 people show up to hear the stories. Right? Now, the cap is 3 minutes. You got to do it 3 minutes, or otherwise it can really get away from you. But you let it, and so you let your neighbors tell you the stories. It's fascinating. Right? Zoom calls, we see this a lot now. Someone will hold up Zoom, and Grandma will hold up a couple items and tell the story. And you can hit record. You're able to tape the whole thing. Coolest thing about that is you have everybody in the family on the video. You get to hear what my dad's voice used to sound like. Like, oh, look, Uncle John used to have hair. And look, that's my grandma. You never met my grandma. What was her name? You'd be amazed the conversations that start to happen. And all you had to do was share the stories that you're willing to share already. Right? Now, what if you're alone? What if you're the end of the line is what we call it? You're the only person left in your family. That's very common. Right? You still need to tell your stories. It's very important. How many of you, I want you to raise your hands on this one, have ever heard the terms, if there's anything I can do for you, just let me know? Guess what? You could sit down with someone and listen to a few stories. Could you go through 5 pictures with me? If someone asked you, if a neighbor or a friend said to you, hey, you said to them, hey, I need you to, if someone said to you, I need you to come over to my house and sit with me for an hour and let me tell you some stories, would you go? Sure, that'd be interesting. Now let's turn the tables. I want you to go ask a stranger to come to your house and listen to your stories. Would you do that? No, that's kind of weird. Most people aren't going to ask someone to do it. You happily go. Right? This is when it matters. If you feel like you have no one to tell, it's super important for you to ask a friend or a neighbor or even a stranger. I guarantee you, put a bottle of wine there, 2 glasses out, there's some good stories. Some very good stories. I've seen this happen a lot now at communities where they put 2 new residents together and they have them do it one-on-one, and it's kind of a forced way, almost like an icebreaker, and it is amazing how quickly you become friends because you're hearing incredible, fascinating stories. Right? And by the way, the more stories you tell, guess how much stuff you're going to get out of your house? You'd be amazed. All right, I use an app called Artifacts. It's not misspelt. There's no A after the F. Artifacts. It's an app where you just take a picture of the item, and then you hit record, audio or video. And in my job, I take a picture of the item, I hand it to the lady, and I say, tell me your story. And I got Grandma, either on video or audio, telling the story. You can also just take pictures with your phone. You can do anything. You can write it down. If you like to write it down. Right? Remember, we are going to send you this entire deck if you want it. Okay? This is really important for this room. If you're over 55, academically you were taught to be perfect. It's your mom's fault. She taught you to be perfect. One thing I never understood when I actually wrote this book for AARP, every day I get at least one email telling me a grammatical error that I made in my book. And it is 100% guaranteed always a woman over 55 that is telling me how wrong I wrote my book. Right? It's how you were raised. You can't help it. The reason I'm saying this is a lot of us think that we can't tell the story if it's not perfect. And that's going to keep you from getting the benefit of telling the story. Do not wait. Don't try to be perfect. Just say whatever you remember. It was sunny that day. There was a guy, I think his name was Chip. Can't remember. You know, I can remember my grandpa's store. I can remember what it smelled like, the hay getting cut across the street. I can remember the sound of the cowboy's boots hitting the wood floor. I remember the sound of the glass candy jar, that when I would try to steal candy from my grandfather's candy jar, I would open it, it would go ring, it would do that glass ringing sound. Some of you know the cookie jar sound I'm talking about. I was trying to steal a bit of honeys. Remember those? The bit of honey wrapped in the wax paper. Yeah, he caught me. So he'd make me clean up every time I tried to steal the candy. And at the end of the day, he would give me 1 piece of candy. Right? Those are the things I remember. Don't hold back from sharing just because you don't remember everything. It doesn't need to be perfect. Memories create more memories. This is really important. Memories create more memories. So the more you flex that muscle of telling the story, the more will come out. Stuff you don't remember right now, in 10 minutes you're going to remember it because you started to tell a story. Yeah. Doesn't need to be perfect. All right. This is where you are going to want to take pictures. I'll get out of the way here. This is called story starters. Some of us are just, everything I've told you sounds great on paper, but I am not a storyteller. I don't even know where to start. This is the 10 questions you can have family members ask you. And you start at number 1, it's real simple. Number 10 gets pretty complicated. If you sit down with your grandkids, you will never get through all 10 in one sitting. All right, we're going to try 2 of these right now. Just yell out an answer if you want. What was the first job, and how much did you get paid? Anybody yell it out? Yes?
A dime store.
A dime store. What'd you get paid?
50 cents an hour.
50 cents an hour. That's a lot of money. 50 cents an hour. Anybody else? Anyone? Yes, sir. Lifeguard.
15 cents an hour.
How much?
15 cents.
15 cents an hour as a lifeguard.
Age 14, I was working at a gas station for 75 cents an hour.
75 cents at a gas station. I heard babysitter over here. How much was that? 35 cents an hour. By the way, my minimum wage right now is $24 for me. That's what I have to pay my employees. Yes, ma'am.
Babysitter, but then I worked in the Forest Service for a summer program.
Forest Service for a summer program. Yeah, right? Anybody was a paper boy? I was trying to explain this paper boy phenomenon to my sons the other day. And their question was, what's a newspaper? Which really frustrated me. It's like, I find them all the time, by the way. They're like, oh, that's pretty cool. So, like, everything on your phone, that was printed, and they would just hand it to you. And I go, yeah, pretty much. They're like, okay, that sounds pretty neat. All right, the number 1, especially in California, let's ask question number 5. What was your first car?
Mustang.
Mustang. Here we go.
66.
66. Anybody? Corvair. A Buick. Big trunk. Float down the road. Yeah. Hudson. Oh, wow. Anybody? A Scrambler convertible, and I sort of, what was the? A Studebaker. Oh, I love it. I had an 88 Wagoneer. It's pretty, that wood paneling that went down, that bounced down the road. I just bought it. I just rebought one, unfortunately. By the way, I'll tell a side story here because we have time. When I clean out houses, I can't buy anything from the family because it's unethical for me to buy it at a cheaper price. And I've been looking for a really good 88 Wagoneer for the last 5 years. This was one owner. Family had never gone anywhere but this family. And so I was like, this is the wagon. I got to drive it. I knew it worked. I was like, this is the one I want. I was like, but it's going to auction because I have to buy it off auction. So I put it on auction, and I start bidding, and then some guy's outbidding me. And with 7 kids, my wife and I have a very specific budget, and we're not allowed to go over it. And at this point, I was way over that budget, I can assure you. And I hadn't run it by my wife yet, but I knew she'd be okay with it because she knows I want this car. I wish this wasn't a true story. I finally give up like 10 minutes before the end of the auction. I'm like, this guy's going to outbid me. The family had said you can buy it for $8,000. And at this point, we were already at $13,000. And so I gave up, but not without a fight. I was like, I'm going to run this guy up a little bit. I'm going to put a few, because he's never going to stop. I think it's on a computer. I'm going to make this guy pay $15,000. I'm going to make him pay for not letting me have the Jeep. So I put a few more bumps in there, and then I hear my kids arguing, so I go to check on my kids. I knew I was going to lose the Jeep. Didn't matter. I come back an hour later after putting the kids to bed, and I have an email. Congratulations, you've won a 1988 Wagoneer. So if anybody wants to buy a 1988 Jeep Wagoneer, I have it at my house. I way overpaid, but I love that car. All right, who was your first love? It better be the person standing next to you. I'll be honest. Don't answer that question. You can pass if it's not. One of the favorite ones. This was a resident question. What's the most significant invention in your lifetime? That's pretty interesting. What have you seen? One lady told us bathroom. She said inside bathroom was pretty cool. She said she was 18 before she got to use the bathroom indoor. That's pretty amazing. One lady said space travel was pretty cool. And then one lady said, well, I have to be honest, this was in West Virginia. She goes, space travel's cool, but it didn't really affect me that much. She goes, hot iron hair curlers was very significant for me in my lifetime. She goes, it used to take us 2 to 4 hours to do our hair. And then when we got like hot iron, it was very simple. Yeah, television, absolutely. It's a big one. Internet would be huge. One guy said iPad yesterday. The point is that this is what gets us to start reminiscing, and this is what gets us to start telling stories. So if you're not even, don't even know where to start, this page right here is a really good place to start. All right. Number 5, the last step is real simple. Donate, 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 donate. Donation over sell every single time. If you can afford, not every time. I mean, if you've got the Corvair, or you've got an old Hudson, you might want to sell that. That's got some real value. I had a guy came up to me 2 days ago. I was down in Carlsbad at the other community. And a guy said, hey, I got a 1932 Olympic gold medal. I don't know what to do with it. I said, how'd you get it? He's the future resident, guy that showed up for an event just like this. And he goes, oh, it was my coach, my sailing coach won the medal. He didn't have any kids, so he gave it to us. And it was really a significant situation. He's like, do I donate it? I go, that's a really good question. What do you want to do with it? We found out the solution is he's going to sell it at auction and then give the money to a sailing club for kids that teach underprivileged kids how to sail. Pretty cool, right? There's ways to do it. Here's what I can guarantee you. You will almost never be happy with the amount of money you receive for that item. 10% is what you should expect. If you think it's worth 100, you get 10. Right? And specifically with your dad or your grandpa's stuff, because whatever number he told you, it's inflated by about 15x. Right? If he told you, I can't tell you how many of my clients are like, oh, that couch is amazing. That chair, that table was hand-carved on the Mayflower coming over here by my grandfather. And like, oh, when you do the math on that, we're missing about 175 years. And it says Haverty's on the bottom of it. Right? We put a price on an item because of why? The memory. Right? Not because it's an actual item. Right? Now, if you actually don't care and you're willing to send it to auction, you get what you get. If you're fine with that, great. Don't spend your time on it. Let a professional do it. Right? But I will always pick donation over. By the way, I make a living. I can feed 7 kids and put them all through college because people like you pay me to clean out your house. And I'm going to tell you right now, if you donate everything, you don't have to pay me anything because you gave it all away. Put me out of work, man, please. I'm busy. I'm real busy, guys. I don't need any more work. Right? If you just give it all away, you won't have to pay us anything. All right, I want you to change your mindset from what if I need this later to what if someone else needs it right now. The joy you'll receive from giving it to someone else is much greater than the financial money that you receive. And here's a tip that people hate. Value your time at $20 an hour. Your time is worth much more than $20 an hour. But like my son said the other day, he goes, Dad, I read that in school, my 10-year-old, he goes, I read in school that 75 is the average age for an adult male now in America. I go, yeah. He goes, well, you're 49. He goes, how does it feel to be entering the last third of your life? The last third is what he told me. I said, dude, it feels great. I feel like I'm just getting started. Like, I'm really just starting to figure things out. He goes, yeah, but you're going to die soon. I hope not, man. He goes, yeah, I hope not to. And then he just walked away. And that was it. Your time is more about, you should not be spending the next 5 years going over pictures and all this junk in your attic. You need to be going the next 5 years playing pickleball with the people I met this morning. All right? Go on trips. Eat good food. That's what you worked for. Don't spend all this time going through your stuff. All right. I do work for Goodwill. I want to be very upfront about that. And I don't care if you donate to Goodwill. I want you to find a place that you care about, that you are connected with. All right? For me, I like Goodwill because they have a workforce development program. They teach a ton of kids. They hire a lot of people that could never get jobs in the special needs world. That's why I work with them. A lot of people hate Goodwill because they don't pay taxes. They're the 5th largest retailer in America. They're the same size as Target. And they don't pay taxes. Right? Some people have a problem with that. I don't, because they hire a bunch of social workers to train all these people. They're the #1 employee of social workers in America. Goodwill is. More than the U.S. government. That's pretty awesome. Right? I really, you might want to fact check me on that last one. I'm pretty sure that's accurate. But I want you to find a place you care about. We have a group in Cincinnati that I work with, and all they do is they give complete homes to people that have lost their house in a fire. So they'll call us at that location and say, hey, we have a family that lost everything. What do they need? They need everything. There's 3 kids. They need 4 beds. They need kitchens. They need everything. So we let them come to our warehouse, and they take every single thing that they need. Our families love that. Our clients would much rather that because for them, it's an immediate donation. It's not sitting in the warehouse and being sold. Whatever works for you, please find that solution and donate because it'll make you feel a lot better. All right, mistakes that we make. We focus on our fantasy life, not our reality. I'm going to jump up here. This is my closet before I moved. These are size 28s right here. Then we got some 30s. Then we got some 32s. I didn't really hang around on 34 very long, and I went right to 36s. And I'm wearing those 36s right now. And obviously they're snug. All right? I refuse to go to 38 because they get really baggy in the back at that point. All right? You guys know what I'm saying. You all have some version of this in your house. You got all your old white starched collar shirts from your job that you haven't gone to since like 1994. The neck is a 14 and a half. And I don't even know what my neck size is anymore, but I guarantee you it's not a 14 and a half. All right, 3 pair of pants fit here. 3 out of 30. That's 10%. Should I keep the 34s? Heck yes, I'm keeping the 34s because I'm going to start working out in a few weeks. I haven't found time in the last 10 years, but magically I'm going to find the time next week. But the 30s, the 32s, and the 28s, can we agree they're time to go? And what if I got some dude that really needs them for a job interview? Even better. All right? Now, this fantasy versus reality, I moved to Atlanta. Finally, the nickname of Atlanta is Hotlanta. I didn't know if I should give up my skis yet. I wasn't sure, my snow skis. And then my buddy goes, when's the last time you skied? I go, I don't know. He goes, did you have any kids? I was like, definitely not. No kids. And he's like, you have a 14-year-old. And I was like, yeah. He goes, so you haven't used those in at least 15 years. Yeah, when you put it that way, it sounds kind of silly. I guess I could donate them. So I did. All right? This includes workout equipment, clothing, yarn, my God, craft supplies, all the magazines, the clippings that you've kept, all the newspapers of when JFK died, when the landing on the moon, all those things you've kept because you think someone's going to want them. You can donate them. Now is the time to donate. This includes every vase that you've ever received flowers in, and the only time you ever had a flower in it was the time you received it. It's in your utility room in the bottom of that closet, and you haven't touched. There's 30 of them in there, and you haven't touched them ever. You guys know what I'm talking about? Yeah. We all got them. Includes encyclopedia sets, too. I hate to tell you that. All right. Here's another mistake we make. You guys read it. Let me know when you're done. All right. Who's holding on to stuff because we're afraid that someone that is dead is going to be mad at us? All right? AARP really didn't want me to put this one in the book. I said, guys, we're all doing it. There is a layer of guilt that if you're over 55, you have it. It's the way we were raised. It is what it is. Right? If you're Catholic, it's even more difficult. Right? It's not a joke. That's a fact. I'll be honest. All right. Guilt is a really dangerous thing in downsizing because what it is you justify holding on to something. Same thing, by the way, on donation. I can't tell you, by the way, if you are deciding between selling or donating, you're deciding between selling something or donating it. You've already decided you didn't want it. Let me say that again. You've already made the decision that you didn't want it, but now you put some mythical price on an item, and all of a sudden you're going to keep it. I didn't want that couch. At $180, I was going to get rid of it, but $165, nope. I'm going to pack that up and take it with me for the next 45 years. It's kind of silly. Right? And it's usually a wooden couch that's got no cushion. Your grandma made your mom keep it. Your mom made you keep it. Now you're trying to make your daughter keep it. None of you wanted it, but it's a family heirloom. It's in a room. It's got plastic over it, and it's in a room you're not allowed to sit in. Right? It's pretty crazy. But for some reason, we punt it. We call it punting, generation to generation to generation. And we try to make our kids take it, and they don't want it. And so, all right, well, fine, I'll take it because I don't want my mom to be mad at me. When did your mom die? 83. Yeah, 83. All right. I am telling you right now, some of you are going to get home this week, next week, you're going to start cleaning, you're going to start to feel guilty. You're going to say, that's what that really good-looking guy was talking about. You're free, guys. You're free of this guilt. I am telling you right now, you're free of the guilt. You do not have to carry it. Nobody wants you to miss out on a better life because of stuff. That's crazy. They would want you to live. They gave you that stuff because they wanted you to have a better life. Not because they didn't want you to have a life. How do you find out if your kids want your stuff? You ask them. Can't assume. You ask them, and they're going to say, no, I don't want it. And then you're going to say, well, she's young. She doesn't know what she's talking about. I'm going to hold on a few more years. And then she's going to want it. All right. If she says no twice, it's yours. Do what you want with it. Give it to a family member that cares more, sell it, donate it, do whatever you want. We had a lady a couple weeks ago that told us about she had a grandfather clock. None of the kids wanted it. She was devastated. She decided to sell it. It ended up selling for a lot more than she thought it would sell. And she was able to go to Paris with her new boyfriend off the sales of said clock. And all of a sudden, the daughters wanted it when they found out how expensive it was. She goes, well, I'm sorry, you're going to have to leave a message. I'm going to Paris. All right, spite items is really the last item here. Spite items is something you don't really want it, but you don't want your 75-year-old sister to have it either. So you're going to keep it. You don't want it, but you don't want her to have it. That makes logical sense, right? Because she said something to you when you're 16, and you're still upset about it. So I'm going to keep the piano. That makes total logical sense. All right, what's this bowl called? It's a Le Creuset. Thank you. You said it right. It's a, what is this? A casserole or a Dutch oven. People call all types of stuff. All right. When I was a kid, when I married my first wife, we didn't cook, but we got to register for a bunch of stuff in the kitchen for some reason. And we got really excited, and we registered for this bowl because everybody told us this is a really good bowl. We didn't cook. So we got it. One of my mom's rich friends bought it for us. We got it. It sat in our kitchen for 10 years. We never used it. Not once. And when we got divorced, we had a very amicable divorce. We're very good friends to this day. We didn't really fight over much except this bowl. This bowl all of a sudden mattered. Yet none of us cooked and we had never used it. And I am very happy to say I got the bowl. I won. I got the bowl. And everything was good until my current wife heard me doing this class. And we got home and she was devastated. She's like, you have to get rid of that bowl today. That is bad mojo, bad vibes. I don't want this in this house. You need to give it to your ex-wife. Get rid of it right now. And me being me was like, well, this is an opportunity to have some fun. So I wrapped it up as a Christmas gift, and I gave it to my ex-wife on Christmas morning. She opened it up. She started laughing. She goes, I didn't want that bowl. I just didn't want you to have it. So now we give each other that bowl every year for Christmas. This year, I get to give it to her this year. All right. I have talked a lot about the opportunities here. I'm using that word very specific. It is you are all embarking on an opportunity to set a foundation to tell your family story. Most of you thought, oh God, this is going to suck. This is going to be horrible. Talk about stuff for an hour. How many of you have actually had fun listening to stories, and you're starting to think about the stories you can tell? All right? This is an opportunity to really create a foundation to tell your family story. Don't bring negativity into it. I have seen families break up over stuff, over metal, wood, cloth. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at the end of the day. And honestly, if you showed up here today, you're probably the adult in the relationship. And even at 75, there's one sister that just never puts enough effort in, and there's one that does. Most of you are the one that does. Right? It is on you to make this a positive relationship and a positive experience. Do you know what I'm talking about? Don't let the negativity creep in. Because this is for the whole family. It's not just for y'all. This is for the grandkids that aren't even born yet. If you tell the stories now, they're going to be talking about you like I've been talking about my grandpa for the last hour. You haven't even met them, you'll never meet them. But if you tell the stories right, they'll be able to tell stories about you 100 years from now. All right, last tip. Buying more stuff makes no sense when you're trying to get rid of stuff. You have enough boxes. You have kept them all. They're in your attic and in your garage. And if you don't have enough boxes, you have enough of the paper bags from the grocery store that shut down 10 years ago that you used for your kids' textbooks to wrap them. That kid's 45. He's not wrapping any more textbooks. They don't even have textbooks anymore. They're next to the vases, by the way. All those brown paper bags. If you double bag them, you can fill them with anything. All right, that includes also, don't buy any more new vacuums at Target. All right, it's kind of like when you decide, I'm going to lose weight, and you go and you buy workout pants, workout shirt, and workout shoes. And yet you don't lose any weight. Because you actually have to put them on and go do something. You actually have to use them. All right? Same thing with cleaning supplies. If you buy them, you're actually just delaying the effort. Instead of taking the 2 hours to go buy cleaning supplies, give me 12 nights at 10 minutes a night. Right? 2 hours, is that 12 nights? 4 nights a week, 40 minutes. So that's 3 weeks at 10 minutes a night. That's better use of 2 hours than going to Target and buying more junk that you're going to pay me $200 an hour to come get. All right? Don't waste your time and your money. All right, here's the whole recap of the whole thing, y'all. Focus on your finish line and your why. Your why is going to keep you from quitting. Start really small, really, really small. Create your legacy list. Can you do that? Create that legacy list, and then go tell the stories. Donate, 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 and drop the guilt. If you do all of that, you can get started. All right, we talked about my dad in his chair. There's the chair now. That's their dad's chair. It's not my dad's chair, it's their dad's chair. That's our reading chair now. My boys are not athletes. They're more academically focused. This is our reading chair. When they read the last chapter in a book, you go sit in that chair, and then everybody gathers around, and when they get to the last page, we start clapping, and the boys get all excited, and we yell and hoot and holler, and when they shut the book, they tell us what happened in the book. My boys are never going to get carried off a football field. That's just not their thing. All right? But this is their thing. They love that chair. It sits basically at the front window right where my dad's chair sat, and I tell a lot of stories in that chair. Right? The only bad thing about this now is they're going to want their dad's chair. Right? And I'm going to give it to my favorite kid after I'm dead. So I don't have to worry about it. Right? Guys, the stories carry on, and they live on forever. If you know the real important legacy list items, no one will ever want to get rid of this. But if you tell these stories that you learned today, and you learn the tools that you took today, you're going to be able to get rid of a lot of the other stuff you don't want. At the end of the day, downsizing is not about getting rid of everything. It's about making space for the stuff that actually matters. Let me say that again. It's not about getting rid of everything. It's about making space for the things that matter so you can truly share your stories. All right, I have one last question, or one statement. I had a guy named Bill. We move a lot of families. I have a couple hundred a year. And one year we had a really difficult clean out. The guy was a brand new widower. His wife had died 2 weeks before. They had made the decision to come together to a community. Their move date was pretty much locked. It was time to downsize. She happened to get sick during it. So we had to move him less than a month from him losing his wife. And they had been in the house 50-plus years. It was very emotional, very heavy. We helped him out. He was an amazing guy. But when you move someone into a community and you shut that door, it's a very emotional thing because we'll spend 2 or 3 weeks with you. We get to know your family. We hear all your stories. I mean, we're very connected with that family. And when you shut that door, you get nervous. And we happened to see Bill. We shut that door, and we didn't know what would happen, honestly. And I saw Bill a year later. I was moving another family in. I said, Bill, how's it going? He goes, man, it's pretty good. He goes, I can dance, and I can drive. He goes, I can do anything I want now. And he's happy. Nobody's ever called me and said, move me back. Put it all back. What they do call and say is, hey, I brought too much. Can you come get the 18-person dining room set that I brought to my one bedroom? Because if a woman tells you she's going to make it fit, by the way, she's going to make it fit. And we've learned not to argue. But they often call us and say, that I shouldn't have brought it. Right? And our biggest advice is if you can work it out with selling your house, move first, leave all the stuff, live there for 2 weeks, and then we'll reshuffle everything, and you'll know what you actually need. All right, did you guys learn anything today? All right, I know I'm entertaining, but did you learn anything? All right, the goal is to be fun, but also bring enough entertainment, or excuse me, enough education that you can get started. Can you do 10 minutes tonight? Yes. All right. Do you guys have any questions? I think we'll help. We can take the mic around if you want to. You can ask about specific items, anything you need. I'll cut a couple people off. Longaburger baskets and Beanie Babies do not sell very well. Longaburger baskets filled with Hummels and Beanie Babies do not sell very well. Cabbage Patch dolls do sell. Who asked that? If you've got the box or if you've got any of the paperwork, the more of the documentation of the Cabbage Patch dolls, they do very well. Yes, ma'am.
I know how you can go on the internet and check the Beanie Babies.
Yes.
But what I worry about is from my parents and things like that, getting rid of something that is really valuable, but I don't know.
Okay. She has a really valid question. If anybody here, she has her stuff. She knows how to look on the internet and see what it's sold for. By the way, if you go on eBay to see what it's worth, don't look what it's listed for. You got to see what it's sold for. Right? But her question is, what about my mom's stuff? I don't know if it has value or not. So if you're looking on the china or the dining room, probably not a whole lot of value. But in that situation, if it's art or jewelry, you do want to bring in a real appraiser. You want to get a certified appraiser to come in and look at it. If they offer to buy it, by the way, a good appraiser shouldn't do it for free. You should pay them for their time. And if they offer to buy it, do not sell it to them. Because they're not there for you, they're there for them. Yes, ma'am.
How will some things I don't know have value?
Yeah.
For example, the flag. Obviously, you knew that had value.
Yeah.
Okay, but let's say it's a flag, but it flew World War II or something.
Yeah. So I'm big. Her question is, y'all's time at your age, it's not really worth spending the next 5 years being a researcher. You're not a professional researcher. So I work with smaller. I work with one really big auction house and then a bunch of smaller local auction houses. Because at the end of the day, a buyer will tell you if that thing's worth anything. All right? It only has, the value of any item is what an independent third person will give you for said item. Right? So like this grandfather clock was a great example that I was talking about. Grandfather clocks never sell. Like, never. If you get $200, you're lucky. Well, we put this one, I set the expectation. I said, ma'am, if you get $200, you'll be lucky. And we listed it on auction, and the next day, we were already up to $18,000. Because we didn't know this very specific, not this brand, but the dude that made it for this brand, and his mark was on the actual pictures that the auction house took for us. We didn't know to do that. The auction house is going to get a cut of your sale. They're going to get anywhere from 25 to 40%. Okay? 40% sounds like a lot, doesn't it? Yeah. But that means you'd get 60%. Your 60%, if they sell it, is much higher than the 100% if you sell it. Because they know the guy that wants that one. There's 2 people in America that want that clock. And they know how to market to those 2 people. And by the way, you just want 2 people to want it. If one person wants it, you got to accept that price. If 2 people want it, now you got an online auction. That car that I bought, I could have bought it from the family for $8,000. But it ended up I made it go to auction because ethically that's what I had to do. So I ended up buying that car for $13,500. Don't tell my wife, by the way. If you're recording this, she cannot get a copy. Right? No, she knows. She's still very upset about it. But the point is, you want it to go to auction. And the actual public will tell you if it's worth it because the bids will go up. Now, the key is when you take it to an auction house, you got to know, do they have an online auction, first of all? If they don't have an online auction, I don't work with them. Because it's an online world now. You want as many people to see it. The whole point is to get as many as you can. If they're just doing it in their warehouse, that's an inside yard sale is what that is. and it's limited to the foot traffic of people that'll walk by. And honestly, most of us live, if it's your parents' stuff, everyone else has that same stuff because our parents didn't travel as much as we did unless they, were in the war. And so what I've found is you're better off getting it online. Someone very far away will buy it. And let the professionals do the listing. Let them do the pictures. Let them do all that stuff. Yes, ma'am.
What about estate sales?
Estate sales, I'm not big on estate sales unless you have an entire house to sell. If you do, I still want it online. If it's not online, it's not going to be very effective. An in-home estate sale with only foot traffic, they do not do very well. Same thing with consignment shops, with the exception of vintage clothes. If you have any clothes from the 80s and before, they do very well at vintage clothing shops and on, what's the word? I just lost it. Not on eBay, they do well. No, where you put it in a store and they sell it for you and they give you. Thank you, consignment. I lost the word. The clothes do really well in consignment. Like, here's a great example. Furs. When I started cleaning houses, furs were a nightmare. Save the whales. They would protest us. You can't sell furs. Now every granddaughter wants the furs. You'll be lucky if you get to sell them. I mean, if you really want to have a good time, take your granddaughter into your closet and let her go shopping in your closet. And let her see what you wore in 1990 and 1980 and 1970. It's all coming back, man. Clothes are 15 years. That's when they come back. It's a 15-year thing. I had a lady a couple years ago. She was 93, and she was guaranteeing me that her jean jacket was going to come back in style. And I said, ma'am, that was 2 years ago, so it's not cool anymore. We got to go 15 more years. I go, you're 93. I'm just saying. She goes, 107? I go, yeah. She goes, I think I'm going to make it. Let's keep it. So she kept it. That's her choice. That's her choice. She is still alive, by the way. Yes?
Where do I find an auction house for art?
Auction house for art. Heritage is really good. Heritage. One you can do by yourself online. By the way, most art sells. Almost all art sells.
Yeah, but if I do it myself, I'd have to ship it myself. And
you don't want to do that. So EBTH is my favorite one I go to. EBTH, that's everything but the house. EBTH.com. If you are a shopper, do not go on EBTH.com. Because I will have to come to your house and it'll be really expensive. We sell all of our watches, most of our jewelry. We sell all that stuff that we sign in people's houses. Believe it or not, your mom's costume jewelry collection does very well. Very well. Because it's 80 years old. Silver. This is going to upset everybody. If it's sterling, melt it. I'm going to say that again. I know. That amazing sterling silver that everybody gave your mom, and your mom made a big, you had to polish it and all that stuff. It doesn't sell as a set anymore. The value, the financial value is in melting the silver. Right? If it's plated, it has no value. And I know that's disappointing, but it is what it is. Yes?
What online...
I'll come back to that.
What online company would one go to if you had 4 1980s Porsches?
4 1980s Porsches. Okay. You could sell that on EBTH. I would actually, I would take to an actual, what's that main auction house? Yeah. Don't sell that directly online. If you've got vintage cars, specifically in California, there are really good, there's an auction house in Arizona. I can connect you with them. By the way, if you guys have to reach out to me at all, go to that IamMattPaxton.com. Just go to that website and send me an email, and I'll connect you with the right people. With that, we'd want to go as specific to a Porsche auctioneer, like a guy that only does vintage Porsches, because he has the 20 people that are going to fight over that. It's not necessarily that you want everybody. Like EBTH gets about 2 to 3 million views a month. So 2 to 3 million people come to that website to buy stuff. But is it the right people? Like your example of a very specific Porsche, there's probably 20 people that want that Porsche. So we would actually go to a Facebook Marketplace. There might be a collector's group on Facebook Marketplace, or there might be if it's like an old 944, those sell, the 80s and 90s 944s, those sell really well in the racing community. So we would connect, because they'll convert those. And so we want to have the people that have the knowledge for those items to sell them to the right people. And that's why they get their 25 to 40% cut, because they have the knowledge, the ability to list it, and then they know who to sell it to. Does that make sense? It's not me, by the way, I can assure you. Yeah. The person cleaning your house really shouldn't be also selling your stuff. We should be connecting you with people that can sell it the most. Now, your brown furniture that the dog has sat on for the last 20 years, the couch that's pretty gross and none of your kids want it, I'm going to sell that on Facebook Marketplace for $100. I will sell that. And if no one buys it in the first day, then I'm going to donate it. Facebook Marketplace is actually a very powerful tool to sell things for stuff that you don't want. Tools, if you've got a bunch of old tools that are just good tools, not exceptional, but just a garage full of tools, those still sell very well on Facebook Marketplace. They're heavy. You don't want to ship them. You want to sell them local because guess what? Whoever bought them is going to come pick them up, and they're going to haul them out of there. You don't need to be. Here's one thing people don't realize. You're in charge here. Especially if it's the adult kids or someone you're going to give stuff to. You're going to say, hey, all your stuff's in the basement. I've had it for 30 years. It needs to be out by January 5th. And if you don't come get it by January 5th, I'm going to dispose of it. You've given them 3 months to figure it out. You've given them enough time. But it's not on you to pick it up and store it and move it. It's their stuff. If they don't want it, then fine. You can sell it. You can do whatever you want to do with it. Move managers, real quick, are probably the most important person. There was a move coordinator in here somewhere. We lost her. There you are. Who do you use? It would have been General Transitions, I'm assuming.
Right.
Yeah.
Transition, and then we have some preferred members.
Okay, so if you're moving here, she's going to know the right move manager for you to work with because they know which hallway to go into. They know which elevator is open at what time. They know how to work with this community, and they've been doing it usually for 20 plus years. I mean, you want to call this moving coordinator and find out who do they recommend locally because they're going to have the contacts to do the sales, to do the moving. They're going to know all the stuff you're struggling with. They've been doing it in this city for 20 plus years, and I've trained a lot of them. Yes, ma'am.
Someone was asking about a car over there.
Yeah.
Gooding and Company is great.
Gooding? Okay, so Gooding, she's saying, I can't speak for them, but they'd be good. I mean,
Company, they sold a lot of our museum cars.
okay, so museum cards. Okay, so you know. All right. Yeah, so Gooding, as she's saying. There's so many, that's why it's important to work with a local move manager because they're going to have that knowledge locally. Any other? Yes, sir.
Let me revisit the classic automobile thing. The online auction that the classic collectors use.
Yes.
People that want a car. Bringatrailer.com.
Bringatrailer.com. Do you own bringatrailer.com? I have to ask that. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so it's Porsche, it's German cars. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. California is a tough place with cars because there's a lot of sneaky good cars in California. I had a lady yesterday, she goes, well, I've got an old truck. It's not really worth much. And I found out it was a 1962 El Camino. And been inside the whole time. Never been outside. That's a little more than a truck. Any other thoughts, but non-car? Yes, ma'am.
How about a rug?
A rug.
Area rug big.
Yeah, an area rug big that you haven't tripped on, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Rolled up.
It's been rolled up. Okay. I hate area rugs for the trip hazard reasons alone. Some rugs will do really well. You want to go to a specific rug group for that. It will sell online at any auction house, and it'll sell on Facebook Marketplace. But if it is a good rug, my challenge with rug is no one's ever said, I have a mediocre rug. They always send me, I have an incredible rug that we got in Egypt and it's worth $5 million. Right? No one's ever said it's mediocre. And so often rugs are a letdown. Because our grandma or our grandfather told us that it, came from some place that doesn't even exist on a map and it's really, really important. It might be a magic rug. I don't know. It's just, rugs are complicated. Books are very complicated. Books are very complicated. Encyclopedia sets, you can't even donate them anymore. They don't want them. I'll sum it up for you. The Cadillac of encyclopedias is the 1967 Britannica. It's amazing. It's beautiful. And one of my employees said, look up a rainbow in the 67 encyclopedia. I open it up, and it's a black and white picture of a rainbow. There you go. That sums up encyclopedias. Yes, ma'am. Encyclopedias we recycle. Regular books, we don't throw. No, in California, actually by law, have to recycle. We're not allowed to throw them away. You live in the second most challenging state to throw anything away. It has to be. It has to be sorted, and it's very challenging, but it's for the right reasons. Books I sell to specific book collectors. Some books will actually give you. Some bookstores will give you credit at their own store. Your first, not first generation. Your first. Thank you. I'm losing my words here. Your first edition books still sell very well. What I would do is I post them as a lot. I post them as one big. I'll say, hey, look, I got 5,000 books, 10 cents a piece. Come get them. And if some professional wants to come and grab them and sell them, and he'll make $100 on one and 5 cents on, if someone wants to spend their time doing it as a professional, let them do it. Right? I think most people can admit that books, at the end of the day, we just want someone that cares about a book to want it. You can also call your library. Your library often will take them. Call the library. Yes, sir.
What about 12-inch LPs?
12-inch LPs. They sell, they sell, they sell. Get them to an auctioneer. Yeah. VHSs, nothing. 8-tracks do well. 78s, not really. Yeah. And your old RCA Victrola, no, I see them every week. The only thing more common than an RCA Victrola is your grandma's Singer sewing machine. That's beautiful. They're $100 at best. I see them everywhere because everybody kept them because they're so beautiful. Now, if you have all the extra pieces and the book, that's valuable because that stuff gets thrown away. Even on Star Wars figurines, the figurine's not valuable anymore. But if you have like the helmet that no one has, that has value. If any item is smaller than a bread box, it's collectible. And if you even know what a bread box is, it's also collectible because people know what they are. Yes?
Where do you sell LPs?
LPs, you can take them to, regionally there are good record shops. You're not going to get a really good deal from them. Your very old, obscure, like jazz records, those are the ones, limited edition is what really matters. I'll say this, if something